What is up, peeps? Good evening. New little intro I did there. We keep hearing it. There we go. All right. A little different tonight than my usual stuff, but I know a lot of people are into it. I'm into it too. Mafia, mob type stuff. I think it's interesting for sure. So I think it would be cool to do a show on it and kind of intertwine what we usually talk about, series killers, serial killers, different things like that. So hopefully the internet holds out here and we'll be able to do this. So I have some couple cool things to show you, a couple cool things to talk about. And I always thought that, like, contract hit killers, wouldn't really consider them serial killers in the vein of like your John Douglases and people like that. They always said there's a third party there, and that's money. They're doing this for money, but some of these guys might have started like that. I don't think there's a lot of them. A lot of them just kept it business, but some of these guys really got into the thrill of doing what they're doing. They have quite a few signatures, and there was even a guy, at least one guy that I know, that kept mementos or kept souvenirs from the crime. So you hear that all the time, right? But anyways, maybe you figure out a couple things you don't know. If you're into the mob stuff, I'm not going to get too deep into the crazy mob, like deep mob dive or not like that. Shows or channels I'd recommend is the Sit Down. Jeff Nadeau has one, and Mob Shorts is another channel on YouTube if you want to watch some videos. They're pretty interesting, and they both have guests on, and they both talk to guys that are in the mob recently, out of the mob. There's a whole wave of people on YouTube that were in the mob that are out now, and I guess it isn't like it used to be. People weren't getting killed. If you would go and do a TV show in the 60s or 70s and maybe even the 80s, they wouldn't be all right with that. So, but I thought it was interesting, so we'll see what you guys think. In case you didn't watch or see, for last Friday night, we got engaged at our Festival of Trees thing that we have here in the city every year. So it was nice. She was surprised. We went to my mom's after and hung out with some family. So very good, exciting, moving forward and getting, taking care of business there. Rooms getting decorated. As you can see, my basketball jerseys are hung up, my Kobe picture, my street sign. But I'm going to have more stuff. I've been doing stuff to my house to get ready to sell it. So we're kind of going back and forth with both things. We've been crazy busy here with fires. I posted pictures. We caught fire we had the other night that I was working. But we have, I was correct myself, 8 and 21 days. I think the post said 18 days. And for a city that's 5 square miles with a population of around 25,000, that is an insane amount of fire. Believe it or not, we don't think any of them are linked. The one fire that we had the other night was bad electrical work. A pagan biker gang bombed one, firebombed one place. We think that's what happened. They're not talking to the police, and the police are like, all right, so and I think only one was an abandoned building, and the police have a lead on who did that, and it could be somebody close by that was tired of looking at it, if you will. So, but anyways, weather has been the weather here. My waters was outside on the porch. It's half frozen, but it's December in Pennsylvania. So what are you going to do? I'm not going to complain too much. I'm off for Christmas this year, so I'm very happy for that. I worked the day after. Yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say coming in, and then I'll get to the stuff. I have a cool video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some stuff, and I have a video that I made, a couple things to show you. Now, I'm going to play it real big so you can see pictures of guys and stuff like that. I watched a couple YouTube channels that did it, and I think that's cool instead of just me sitting here talking. So we will get to that, but what's up, CJK? Good to see you. That Christmas Day game's coming fast. Mustang, good to see you. Stella, how are you? Hey, Necessary Evil. Well, if your birthday wasn't last Friday, Charles, I apologize. But I did see people wishing you happy birthday. Was that the same day? That had to be like in Discord somewhere. Well, thank you. Melissa, how are you? Good to see you guys. I don't know how people will be into this this type of stuff. There's a name already, Charles Richard Kuklinski. Yeah, the Iceman. No, it wasn't Sunday. My Steelers, if you're not a Steeler fan, I don't think, but they delivered the Browns a thorough ass kicking Sunday. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it from everyone. Yeah, Kuklinski's in here. Now, Kuklinski, so Richard Kuklinski's called the Iceman. Side story, real quick. You guys know I'm a wrestling fan. So Stone Cold Steve Austin, when he came to the WWF at that time, they couldn't come up with a name for him. So his wife at the time she was in wrestling. She was from England, Great Britain, or I'll just say England because I don't really know the difference and I don't want to offend anybody. But anyway, they were coming up with a name, and he watched the thing about the Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, and said that would be a really cool persona, shave my head and just be like cold as ice. I don't give a crap about anybody, and it worked. It's put him to superstardom, But anyway, they gave him a list of names like Frost McFang. Imagine Stone Cold being called Frost McFang, and these other just horrific names that WWF creative came up with. They were terrible, and he talks about them in interviews. So his wife gives him a tea and says, "Drink your tea before it gets stone cold." And he said, "That's my name, Stone Cold Steve Austin." Or Stone Cold Steve Williams was his name, and he was billed to be from Austin, Texas. So that's where you had that. But Richard Kuklinski's numbers, depending on what you believe, I think that he definitely killed a lot of people. But I think like Frank Sheeran, the movie The Irishman, there's a lot of embellishment. Now, a lot of these numbers are embellished. You hear Roy DeMeo and his crew did over 200. They probably didn't do 200, because other mobsters, like, it's hard to kill that many people in the life that we're in, even in those days, 200 people. So over 100 probably for sure, but we'll talk about those guys too. But I always thought, there's a difference. If you're taking money, you're a contract guy. This guy that got caught in Pennsylvania, El Tuna is about 2 hours east of me, known for this horseshoe curve it has. On this train, you could ride this train, and like you see the other side of the train. I don't know if it's the biggest horseshoe curve in the United States or the East or whatever it is. The Pirates have a double A team there, and they're called the El Tuna Curve because that's so known for that. But anyways, whenever that thing happened and people were talking, that hit on the CEO, could it have been a hit? He knew about insider trading and they took him out. Absolutely not. They're not going to kill him in New York City, the city that probably in the United States has the most cameras in it. If they do, they're going to do it inside a room or something, but they're probably not going to do it there because they know they're going to be on camera. If it's a real pro, they're not going to scribe something on a bullet and try to say, we're going to throw them off and think it was a disgruntled, whatever, like it appears to be. But there was an inscription on a bullet. But those guys, you're not going to see them. They're going to get very close. They're going to put a couple in you when you're on the ground. They're not going to use a 3D printed weapon. So I thought that right away, like this isn't a hit. Mafia now, when they do hits, there's times where they do hits and they send a message. And here's some of the things that, I don't know if you guys knew this or not. You're not seeing this very much anymore, okay? But Donnie Brasco, the guy, as Joe Pistone that played him, talked about that Sonny Black, if you watch Donnie Brasco, and I think it's pretty historically accurate. There's some creative things in there or whatever, but a lot of it's pretty accurate. It's a great movie. Pacino, Johnny Depp, bunch of other guys that are really good in small parts. But Sonny Black, he had his hands cut off because he brought Donnie in. So he welcomed him, with his hand, and then he was found with his hands off. They'll put rats in their mouth. That's self-explanatory, right? Cut your tongue out. That's probably self-explanatory. They thought those guys were snitching. They would, certain guys that leave their shoes on would be kind of like a sign of respect or things like that. But there is so many, those are all signatures. Those don't have to, but I wouldn't call that like a serial killer signature. They're not doing this to get some crazy jolly. They're doing this to send a message. So everyone knows why this guy was killed. We're not going to snitch anymore because look what they did to Joe Schmo or whatever. So when we talk about this topic, we're not talking about things like that. Signatures that certain guys had in certain ways that they did things. For instance, the Gemini Lounge was Roy DeMeo's lounge. Someone owned it before him. He kind of got his way in, loaned the money, couldn't pay it back, took it over. It became the Gemini Lounge. There was a method. It was called the Gemini method. And I'm going to show you a picture pretty soon of his little crew that he had. DeMeo was a made guy. His crew weren't. They were, a couple nationalities. I think Jewish, Italian, some Irish. and they would call the Gemini method. So what they would do is they would get you into the Gemini lounge, but you would really never come out, not the way that you went in anyway, right? So they would get up and they would hit you, shoot you in the head real fast, wrap a towel around your head. These guys are all poised to make this assault on a guy. Then they'll stab you in the heart really quick because they want the heart to quit pumping because the blood's what squirts everywhere. Quickly take you off to a waiting bathtub or shower area that they had, and they would just begin to disassemble you. And it would take you to this one landfill where it was one too many landfills that time, like there maybe is today in that area in New York City. And there'd be so much garbage that they would throw pieces around. You'd never find it. Like the cops were supposedly went and looked a couple times, but there was like so much every day that came into this landfill that it would have been, you know, just stupid to even attempt to do this. So cement boots was a way that they used to do it too. Talking about Donnie Brasco here, not the Iceman. The Iceman I was talking about before, that's where Stone Cold Steve Austin got his name. He had just watched that Iceman Richard Kuklinski thing. Now, Richard Kuklinski, there's been a couple of things that he has said that they're able to prove in false. Same with Frank Sheerhan. But these guys were certainly killers. You know, the book, I Heard You Paint Houses, is the book that the Irishman's written on, based off of. And through my research, and I'm not a great mob guy, there's other better mob people on YouTube than I am, but I really don't think that Sheerhan was actually involved in the Jimmy Hoffa hit, like the Irishman says. It was definitely Jack Aloney. Bugs might have been there, that Sally Bugs guy, but he was picked up and everything like that. And I think his son was in the car, and there was the whole fish and everything like that. But I just don't know that Sheerhan was in that car. I don't know. But, you know, it's interesting to talk about, though. It's very interesting to talk about. But anyways, let's get into a couple of things. So let me show you a couple of things here by doing a present. And then I'm going to talk about other guys. And like I said, I made a video just to play in the background. There's no sound with it, but it's different pictures of different people that I'm going to talk about. So I thought it was pretty cool to do something like that. So it's just not me just sitting here talking. So I have a bunch of pictures that I sent to myself. So this is Tony Karate. We're going to talk about him, or Tony Patera. It wasn't karate that he learned. It was some other martial art that I can't even pronounce the name of. I'm not even sure what it is. But anyways, the mob dudes, oh yeah, you know martial arts. Well, you're going to call you Tony Karate. He was extremely sadistic. We will get to him and a couple of things that he did. And he studied things. He studied where to bury people. He knew how deep to bury them because of the dogs and, you know, things like that. It's just, but anyways, that's Tony Karate. This is the Grim Reaper, Gregory Scarpa. Gregory Scarpa died of AIDS. He was afraid to get a blood transfusion, so he had his own guys within his crew donate blood when he needed a blood transfusion. And one of the guys was taking steroids and actually had AIDS and gave it to Scarpa. Many stories about Scarpa. There's a story that he was at the Mississippi burning, if you've watched that movie. And he was the guy that came in and got one of the Peckerwoods to talk, if you will, down in Mississippi. During when the civil rights, the Freedom Riders, the guys disappeared. The three gentlemen disappeared. Well, supposedly it wasn't that one. He did it for them, and it was another civil rights murder that was a lot less known. A kid named Dahmer was his last name, actually. And supposedly Scarpa shoved a knife down the guy's throat and says, I'm gonna blow you away unless you tell me who did it. He gave good information, but he was working with the FBI at the time, Scarpa. So they was like, listen, we need you. You do what you need to do. But there was a girl that went down, and she testified later against an FBI agent, guy named Del Vecchio, that Scarpa went down during the Mississippi burning thing, but that supposedly was not true. Tony Spilotro from the Chicago mob went to Las Vegas, and anyone that's seen the movie Casino, this is Joe Pesci's character. Very sadistic. Pesci plays him pretty good, but he's done so many other things. We're not going to cover everything he's done, but that's the real Tony Spilotro. This guy here is Sam Mad Dog DeStefano. Might not be known by as many people, but this guy was criminally insane. Remember they used to hang like the Joker on Batman, criminally insane. This guy was criminally insane. He might not even be tried for murder today because he was so nuts. There's the Iceman, Richard Kuklinski. I don't know what number he claimed, if it's in the 150 or 200, but he was certainly a contract killer for LCS, La Costa Nostra. He's an interesting character, though, for sure. How much, you don't know. Everybody's numbers are inflated, okay? When I was talking to you guys about the Gemini Lounge, this was kind of this was the clique here. Chris Rosenberg, Joseph Testa, Anthony Center. Testa and Center were known as the Gemini Twins. They were always together, really good friends. Henry Borelli, Dom Montiglio, Anthony Gaggi. Nino Gaggi was the higher up that kind of controlled DeMeo. Gigliamo, and of course Roy DeMeo. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. This is one of the things that Tony Karate, and I was reading articles and things like that, and I just wanted to read you this. This is Tony Karate, the guy that supposedly knows karate. The first picture, with the mugshot where the cops look like they busted him up. But one time Pietro took a killing too far, even by the mafia's relaxed standards. According to Frank Gangi, an associate who eventually flipped on Pietro, he witnessed he ended up killing that Gangi later. Witnessed Pietro take a bath with the corpse of an alleged informant who he dismembered while sitting naked in the tub, arrested for drunk driving. Gangi requested to speak with authorities. Later, one of his victims. Think about that. That's a personal thing. You're not just whacking somebody. That's almost like a total consumption, like when people like eat other people, like it's beyond bizarre. But this guy was an absolute sicko. So let's not ever be mistaken on that. Okay. So I'm going to play some stuff here in the background. I'm going to get back and start talking to people, talking to you peeps. Make sure I got the right thingy up here. If you ever want to listen to something funny, go to Riley Martin. He used to be on Howard Stern. I've been on a Riley Martin kick lately when I'm doing like chores around the house, and I just die. I mean, I die laughing. All right, let me get this going. And I'm just going to start telling you what I have to tell you. So there'll be different people popping up here. I'll talk about some of them, but there'll be the people that we'll get to. So the first person that we're going to talk about here is the first person that's going to pop up. And that is Richard Kuklinski. That's the Iceman, contract hit guy, necessary evil charge. If you're still in here, maybe one day you want to do something on him. I don't know how much of everything that he did that I buy. And these pictures kind of jump around. Again, the Iceman, one of the cool things with the Iceman, like I said, was the Stone Cold Steve Austin name that came off him. So I'm going to play this video a couple of times, so we'll bounce back and forth. That's Mad Sam DeStefano. Like I said, we showed you the picture of him before. Spilatra. So we're kind of going over some of the things. Some of the pictures you're going to see are old candid pictures. Them at events, them in their element with the V-neck shirts and the chains, and just like the vintage mob and some of the older guys with some of the older things. But so Kuklinski, as Charles brought up before, is a very interesting case. The Iceman, they called him. There's tons of stuff on YouTube about him, all kind of things. Hey, Boston Christian, good to see you. Cherry Blossom, good to see you. There's all kind of crazy and things about him online that you can find. There's also a ton of mobsters today that recently came out of jail, or maybe they snitched and they did whatever they had to do. Now they're able to come out and talk, and they do a lot of YouTube shows. And hey, Scout, good to see you. They're very interesting to watch. And maybe they're not giving you everything, but I think they give you a lot. Sammy the Bull Gravano, I don't know how you feel about him. I don't have him listed here. We're not going to talk about him because he only actually, from what I could tell, is he only actually physically killed one person. The other 19 or something were hits and things like that. And I just don't. I don't think he was the maniac that he was portrayed as. He was a crazy guy and he was a dangerous guy, but he was not the maniac that he was portrayed as, like the Stone Cold Killer. He was a really big earner and a really good businessman. He owned a lot, and I think one of the reasons he got in trouble with John Gotti was that he became too powerful. Anybody that built anything like in that town went to Sammy Gravano. If you used over X amount of concrete, you've basically had to have a face-to-face with Gravano. But if Gravano wasn't like holding shit up, he got stuff done. And so the people that used him, the unions, the concrete companies, the big corporations, they all liked him. But anyways, Kuklinski, we're not going to talk about a ton, but I definitely wanted to bring him up and mention him. Anywhere from 150 to 200, you hear his number. It's I don't think it's that many, but he certainly was a killer. I think he embellished a little bit, but at the end of the day, he found out kind of at a young age. If you believe the story where he killed a town bully when he was like 12, it beat him to death. He would pick on Kuklinski, and a lot of these guys were picked on, believe it or not. Of these mob people, they were picked on in school. Tony Karate was picked on. Roy DeMeo was picked on. There's not a lot that I could find about Stefano as he was growing up. So a lot of these guys were picked on. Some of these other mob guys, they're not getting picked on. But Sammy the Rat, yeah, there's a lot of rats out there talking now. Yeah, definitely, Charles. Even if we get to Flora, this type of stuff, I don't know how much people like us, but I'm into the mob stuff, but I'm not, all the way. That could have been, if you're talking about that's Scarpa when he had AIDS there at the very end. There's interesting side stories. There's a guy named Larry Mazza who was having an affair with Scarpa's wife. Scarpa okayed it. And him and Larry Mazza became really close. Really wild story, but they call him the Grim Reaper. That's Gregory Scarpa, the Grim Reaper. So since he's up, we're just going to pop in a couple of these people and talk about what, we're not going to get super in depth. That is Tommy Karate, Tommy Patera, but Gregory Scarpa. So he had a long relationship with the FBI. He was almost like a Whitey Bulger, before Whitey Bulger, if you would. He had a long relationship. He would give little things up. He wouldn't want to give any of his people up. That's Tommy Karate in the middle. He wouldn't want to give a lot of his people up, and he would give other people up. He would set up the opponent, if you would. And, it was still snitching, but business-wise, people are, it make good business sense. Yeah, maybe it did, but he was known as the Grim Reaper because he would get his hands dirty. He was not afraid to kill many for really any reason. He had no problem doing his own work, as you would say. Other people would kind of sub things out, but he definitely enjoyed it. He definitely liked it. There's been many other mobsters that have came out, and they've named a couple people that they'd say, listen, those guys were serial killers. And Scarpa's one of them. He's not one of the ones that you might hear maybe as much, but he got off on killing. Some of his killing, he got off on hurting and torturing people. And like I said, the FBI knew that. And even though it doesn't appear to be the Mississippi burning case where the civil rights workers disappeared, it appears to be another case, a kid named Dahmer that was killed. And they couldn't figure it out. And it was 1964. And they said Scarpa went down and shoved a gun down this guy's throat, this Klansman. But the whole story about the TV repair, that happened. That's how it happened. Him and another FBI guy bought a TV. This guy was like repaired. He was like a KKK guy, but he was a little bit slow. Probably all KKK guys are a little bit slow, right? But he was like developmentally challenged, but he had this repair shop. And when he went out with his TV, helped him carry it to the car, most of you guys are my age or older, maybe a little bit younger. Remember when TVs used to be heavy as shit, right? So they get out in the car and Scarpa just starts pistol whipping this dude in the back seat. They drive away. They take him to a secluded cabin or somewhere. They said it was a cabin, and he went to town. So, oh, that's a good one. Be a good one to watch. I went to school at Swin Cash from McKeesport. Sammy the Rat, yeah. But if you watch him talk now, it's like he never did it, though. You know what I mean? It's really no problem. 63. We're just getting into talking about the possible mob serial killers, and I believe that there's some of them are. but Scarpa got into it. He talked about enjoying it. Never had a sexual aspect to it. I think it was a total like a control and a sadistic, and I want to hurt you. And as far as we know, he never killed any women. We don't even know in the mob in these days, it wasn't uncommon for domestic violence. I don't even see any reports of him domestic abusing his wife. He cheated on her, and she had her thing with Larry Mazza, who was delivering groceries to the house of a grocery boy at the time. It's another story altogether if you're into that. That's picture of the Gemini Lounge today. But anyways, Roy DeMeo. There's Roy DeMeo right there. So that's picture of the Gemini Lounge. Roy DeMeo, we talked about the Gemini method, right? They shoot you in the head. They wrap a towel around your head. Those are the Gemini twins. Center and, God, I can't remember the other guy's name there. But we'll get to him. Their picture is going to come up again. And when I showed you before, the whole DeMeo crew. Yeah, these are the DeMeo guys coming up now. But anyways, they wrap a towel around your head. They have someone else. They stab you in the heart to get your heart stopped, so it quits pumping blood. And then like they had a whole thing. It was called the Gemini method. It was known in the world of organized crime, and the underworld. It was known by the police. The Gemini method, and they got so good at it, and it came to the point where here's where Roy DeMeo got in trouble. He had a hugely successful car business where he would steal cars, chop them up, do different things, do specialty jobs. You have a mob boss come in and say, hey, the trafficante's coming up from, Miami, and he wants this kind of car to ride around, and to go get it for him. They'd steal it for him, or special orders from special people. Hey, or someone in Italy wants this, they'd go steal it for him. He made a ton of money doing that. And then they started giving him work. He did some work when he was young, but then they started giving him, work, and he would just go to town with it. And then he would look for reasons to actually kill other people that wasn't necessarily business related, and it was personal and things like that, or any slight grudge. He enjoyed it, is what people said. So he'd look for a reason. Sometimes he would go and he would turn and roll it up to the superiors. Hey, this guy did this. Sometimes he'd lie to them just so he could kill somebody, so that they have someone to kill. And these guys were all in on it. They were all into it, and they were in the coke scene back then. And I'm sure there's some drinking and different things like that. But yeah, there's Rosenberg. Rosenberg was a really great car thief, and then they actually ended up killing him, his own crew. He got into some trouble, was doing some things he shouldn't have been doing. Bulger, yeah. Bulger worked both sides of the fence. Bulger was purely for Bulger, Lady Bulger. Purely. There's the DeMeo crew there. One of the guys they took, Mickey Spillane, was one of the people that he took out, or one of the people that crew took out, the Gemini crew. And just, he enjoyed it, and they were really good at it. But again, he knew it was coming. He was hiding out in his house at the end. He also is dead. He was also killed by the mob. And as people say many times, that people like this could be useful, but when they're this crazy and they're this wild, they kind of can't be controlled. So no one's going to trust them. So when a guy like this disappears and everyone in the underworld knows it, everyone kind of breathes a sigh of relief. Maybe he's done work for you before. Maybe he's helped you out. But at the same time, you don't have to worry about Roy DeMeo coming back again. So Tony Spilotro was the picture of the little guy, the guy from Casino, Joe Pesci's character. Put his hands on many people, killed many people, not just with guns. And it doesn't mean a serial killer doesn't use a gun. Night Stalker used a gun, 25 on some occasions. But Spilotro would do different things, torturing people. He really got off on torturing people. That's Mad Sam DiStefano, and that is a megaphone. And we will talk about that at the end. And I don't think he's faking that. I think he's really crazy. And he was for a long time. But we'll get to him in a second. But so the scene where they're crushing the head supposedly really happened. The guy's kid, the name wasn't Tony Dogs. And I don't know what happened behind it. But he would find different ways to do that. He enjoy taking people like to warehouses and things like that to torture them. They had different places where they would go. And remember, they were out there, the hole in the wall gang, right? They would knock holes in walls. They'd pull up to a building and knock a hole in the wall, go in and grab stuff. They would do burglaries at houses, burglaries in hotel rooms, whatever the case may be. So he was he was a thief, and he was a pretty good earner. And then he got, really, really sadistic. Maybe he was sadistic all along. He had 4 brothers. 3 of his brothers were hooked up. One of whom we know got killed with him in that cornfield. They were bludgeoned to death, and they were buried alive. That's confirmed. We don't know who was in charge. Collada is the guy. Frank Collada is the guy that Frank Vincent plays. Frank Vincent, who was in The Sopranos, of course, with the oh my goodness. Carmine Lupertazzi family. He was there in the movie, but I don't know for sure if he was there at that time. But the 4th Spilotro brother was a dentist, and when they recovered the bodies, they had to go to him to identify their teeth. I found that out, so I thought that was interesting and maybe a little sick and twisted. But Spilotro would have had no problem killing women or beating women, if it personal or otherwise, and he just became really, really out of control. he was unchecked in Las Vegas. When he was in Chicago, he was always kind of under somebody's thumb, and he was unchecked and unfettered out there, so he could just do whatever he wanted to do, and he did it. And that's what kind of brought all that down. They don't bring that heat on Ace Rosenthal was his real name, not Rothstein. It was Rosenthal. And if it isn't for Tony Spilotro, because there was a lot of that going on. That the mob was out there for a long time. Ace was running that casino, but he wasn't the first wise guy, street guy to be running a casino. They knew what to do. That's actually his ID. I find it interesting to look at people's IDs. I have a lot of pictures of them. Just, you know what I mean? Because it's kind of like, to me, this is the face that they want to project to the world. Not necessarily mobsters who still want to look tough, but maybe like a serial killer. Maybe he has some smile. Or like, this is the face that he has when he wants to project, hey, I'm a normal person, or I'm just one of you. My opinion anyway. So we talked about the Iceman, Kuklinski already a little bit. And again, if you're just coming in, wrestler Stone Cold Steve Austin, when he came to the WWF, he didn't know what his name was going to be. So WWF Creative gave him a list of names. He watched the Kuklinski Iceman documentary. It was on HBO, I think, like 1995. Really good documentary. Still to this day, it holds up. And he wanted to have a real cold, like a contract killer type. That was going to be Stone Cold. He was getting away from the ringmaster, if you guys go back and remember that. But hey, Gibbo, what's up? Great to see you. Yeah, Berkowitz. We were talking about with a gun. Yeah, Berkowitz is a very interesting case. It's so different than everything else to me because of that gun. Necessary evil. I just think that's so. It's cold, and I know what he's doing, but like the hands-on thing, I kind of understand these people. But that's a very interesting case. And I think they got the guy. I don't think there was other people involved in that one. I know other people have said that, but great to see you, Gibbo. But anyways, so to give him all these crazy names, Fang McFrost, and all this crazy stuff that he makes fun of. He had a wife at the time from England. She gave him tea, and she's like, honey, drink your tea before it gets Stone Cold. And he's like, that's going to be my name, Stone Cold. He wanted to beat Steve Williams, which is his real name, but it's Steve Austin. But Kuklinski, the Iceman, if you want to watch any videos of him up, he is a very accomplished killer. I think a serial killer. He got into the way he talks about enjoying killing. And one of the things that he does better than anyone else on this list is he compartmentalizes. And that's a huge serial killer thing. So when I say compartmentalize, which I don't say easy, do I? What do I mean by that? He could go whack somebody, kill somebody, do his thing. Paint the house. I hear you paint a house. I mean, you can kill people and I do my own carpentry. If you watch The Irishman, it means you also dispose of the body. And so he does all that. He could come home and eat dinner with his family and be a really good dad to his kids on all accounts. There was no, you really hear anything about Kuklinski, but he was just like two different people. And so that's kind of these are the things that you look for. That have that ability, but he talks about, enjoying, and other people around him talk about how he would enjoy it. Maybe not as big as a braggart as some of the other ones, but he was into his job and he got paid. I don't know if he'd have done it for free, but he relished the work for sure. And again, I just don't know how much was inflated at the end there whenever he came up. Sheerhand came up, and I don't believe necessarily everything that he said at the end either. I don't know if these guys are thinking about setting their family up, but where there's smoke, there's fire, and there is a lot to it. Okay, guys, there is a lot to it. I'm not saying that. I don't think Kuklinski killed 200 people, but he could have been over 100. So if you think of it that way, here we'll go again for you. If you think of it that way, that's still more than like the people that we have on our list. We look at people, Gary Ridgway's up there and different people like that, but it's not everyone either. It's not everyone out there hitting people. Some people are going up, boom, they're dropping you on the ground, putting two more in you, and then going on their way. And they're only doing it for money or doing it for the mob thing, whether it's, the mafia or street gangs. The mob guys, a lot of times when they would do hits, they wouldn't get paid money. They would get favors. They would get things in return. They would, do things for these powerful people. Gravano always said that anytime I got anyone, I never asked for any money. Someone said someone had to go. And he said, I would go and I would get it done. Gravano's big thing was planning. He was a former military guy. He was into tactics and stuff like that. So he was really good at planning. He was a backup shooter a couple of times. He was a backup shooter on the Paul Castellano hit, the big one outside of Sparks Steakhouse. But he wasn't, I wouldn't consider him that. He was a planner. He wasn't hands-on. We only know of one hands-on killing that he did. According to his own admission. And if you watch his channel too, it's entertaining because he comes off like as a crazy little fucker. And I would never say that to his face, even at his age. But I don't know if he was that. I think he was more like a business savvy guy. I think this bull thing was built up. But I don't know. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. The last guy that I really want to talk about is Tommy Karate or Tommy Patera. Tommy Patera, that's not him. I'll show you when a picture comes up. He's still in prison. I think he's still alive. So as a young kid, another guy that was picked on, like Kuklinski was picked on. I don't know if Spilotro was picked on. He's probably the only one I know, but everyone else was picked on. Spilotro was a little guy, and he grew up in a tough neighborhood. So I bet you they maybe he was picked on a little bit. But anyway, Tommy Karate's picked on, so he's looking for a way. He got into like the Green Lantern TV series with Bruce Lee at the time. I forget the other guy's name. So he got into martial arts. He'd read all the books. That's Scarpa, by the way. He'd read all the books and everything like that he could do. And eventually he got really good. He won a couple of local contests. He got into it. When he got older, he actually spent time over in Japan training and learning different things. So he was like, like the Steven Seagal character that I loved his old movies, but he's probably pretty full of shit. Tries to portray. That was kind of like that was Tommy Karate here. That was Tommy Patera. So he goes over there a couple of years, comes back. He's proficient with nunchucks, size, a couple other things. He's legit. So as soon as he comes back, pretty much, he kind of like the mob grabs him up, and he becomes a member and associate. And then he eventually, goes through his things and trials and tribulations, makes his bones. But they find out that he's very much into killing, and he's almost like a Jeffrey Dahmer type. And this is what I mean. He studied anatomy very much. He wanted to know what was inside of people. He would cut people up. He'd go further than he have to. You're dismembering people. You're going to throw them here, throw a piece of them here. He's going further now. He's looking at things. He used all kind of forensic countermeasures. So he's like BTK too in this regard. Let me tell you what he would do. He would bury them deep enough to know the dogs couldn't smell them. He'd do research on these things. He would like to bury people in wildlife reserves. You go near a road and there'd be a fence, say you can't hunt here, because he knew they would never be developing that property, probably, right? Because it's a wildlife reserve. It's a sanctuary for the animals. They're not going to sell this to, Jack Harpoonian or whatever to come in here and build condos all over this place. So he knew that those bodies were there. So these are very big forensic countermeasures, removing fingers, teeth, things like that. Like he was very much into it. I don't know if he ever said this, but I bet you he was a not a fan, but a scholar of serial killers and a scholar of how to get away with killing and stuff like that. He supposedly committed 60 murders of himself, and this guy kept souvenirs, and it ended up helping bring him down later. He couldn't get rid of them, like we talked about before. These folks, they can't help themselves. They relive these crimes. That's why they take the souvenir. They take the souvenir to relive the crime, not to just have it, but at some point in time, they're touching that. They're going to hold it. They're going to smell it. They're going to feel it. There's a scene in the movie called The Lovely Bones, which is a movie that's really like fucks me up. I only watched it a couple of times, but I think it's extremely sad. But it's a very good movie where, he's holding this piece of, I forget what it even was, that he took from the girl that he killed. And he's sitting in his chair and he's living that moment through that, the touch of it, the smell, it's bringing it back to him. People have theorized and they fantasized about doing these things. Richard Allen absolutely theorized and fantasized about doing this before. Gary Ridgway fantasized about doing that. That's Tommy Karate there on the left in prison a couple of years ago. He fantasized about these things. There's no question about that. Whether he told people about it or not, he was really, really into this. So a couple other things on him. But we go back to Scarpa real quick. I had one thing I wanted to mention about Scarpa. So go back to the Donnie Brasco movie. Greg Scarpa is on the side of Sonny Red. If you remember in the Donnie Brasco movie, there was three bosses and they're in there laughing, they're getting guns because they're going to kill Sonny Black and Rusty. The guy's name was like Rustoli or something. I think it was Rustoli. They called him Rusty. It wasn't because he had red hair, which was initially what I thought why they called him Rusty. But his name was Rustoli, and that's who Sonny Black worked for. That was the Stephen Madsen's character. That was Donnie Brasco and Al Pacino's boy, right? So Scarpa actually worked for the three bosses that got whacked. And he was a loyalist with them, but pretty quick after they were killed, everyone, including Scarpa, went, they had to sit down and they kept all their stuff and they divvied up a little bit of what those bosses had, and that kept those guys happy. But Scarpa was on the other side of that Donnie Brasco, and that's when they brought Donnie in out of the car and they're starting to cut people up or whatever. I don't know if Pistone was ever in that situation in real life, and that's Donnie Brasco's real name, Joe Pistone. He's done a lot of interviews. He's still in witness protection or when hiding, if you will. All the interviews he does with glasses on. So it's pretty interesting. But the mob thing, it's a different genre altogether. It's a different animal altogether. But one of the things, and I've heard people, and one of the things that made me think about it was like Delphi. Some people thought maybe Delphi was a contract, a hit, or something like that. And it's just everything that I've learned over the years and research was that hits aren't usually like that. And I said, what kind of hits do they actually go hands on? It isn't 2 taps to the head. It isn't we're poisoning your food. And it's the mafia, where they'll cut your hands off, right? Where they'll cut your tongue out, where they'll do different things like that. And that is almost like spray painting on the body. We killed him for talking to the police. It's the same thing because everybody knows, and they want that body to be found. And it's very weird. It's very weird, but it's a language. It's a language. And like I said, I wouldn't call that signature necessarily. What I would call signature is the Gemini method was a signature. People who like to strangle people. Tommy Karate liked to use ice picks. There was an Abe Kid Twist Relis in Murder Inc. back in the 30s used to use ice picks. Certain guys used to like to choke you from behind. There was all these different things that they did. Those are all MO. The signature is, remember, what doesn't need to happen for the crime to occur. Taking things away, sitting in a bathtub with someone, a certain way to dismember people. That's a forensic countermeasure. But the signature of the Gemini method, before the person hits the floor, their head's getting wrapped with a towel, someone's catching them, someone's stabbing them in the heart. I would say that's signature. I know other people say it's a forensic countermeasure. I think it's both. And I think they got off on it. I think they all got off on it. And there's their crew right there. Did you ever hear Nino Gadji? Nino Gadji was I believe the captain. I don't think the man was ever a captain or just a lieutenant. And it's just, but yes, I think that there are mob serial killers. Some of the mob guys save it themselves. Maybe they don't know the definition. Remember, the definition is 2 or more separated by time and space. And it certainly is that. Mad Sam DiStefano, right? The last guy we're going to talk about, the crazy guy that's in the pictures later in life. So this guy would ride around the neighborhood once he was made, before he was made, and he would SA women. He would look for women and SA them. So this is like Ted Bundy. He was a sick man. And even before he was under like scrutiny from police, he would act crazy. He'd flop around on the floor. He'd scream for Satan to let him go. People didn't know back then. They say he had spells. You had spells. No one was going to Mad Sam DiStefano was not going to shrink. Citizens weren't really seeing psychiatrists then, but if you can imagine the mob guys, you watch The Sopranos, filmed in the late 90s, early 2000s, Tony goes to a shrink. Even though Carmine said that there's no stigmata nowadays about it, for any Sopranos fans out there, there is. And imagine what it was like way back when. But anyways, Mad Sam was definitely mad. He was criminally insane. When he would be committing acts and he liked to use his hands, knives, ropes, different things like that, he'd drool. His voice would change. And everyone around him, no one thought it was an act. No one thought he's trying to act crazy, like to get away from police, like Chin Gigante, or to try to incite fear in people. Like, oh, that guy's really, I mean, these guys are crazy here, but that guy, he's fucking nuts. End of his life, he would come out in a chair on a megaphone. He'd be screaming things out with a megaphone. He really became a crazy old man, and he became a little bit of a detriment to the mob because he talked too much, and they were worried about what he was going to say. So he ends up getting whacked later by some people in his crew, and that's usually how they do it for sure. Sure was a wild world for women. Yeah, and you know what? It was, and it wasn't just an Italian American thing necessarily. It was like if you were, in that time, if your husband was in a gang, motorcycle gang, maybe a street gang, the Crips or the Bloods, there's a good chance that you were going to be domestically abused. That's just how folks lived. It's hard to shut it off when you come home. You're out there in the streets, like killing and fighting for your lives and doing things like that. It's hard to shut it off. But yeah, the money was there, so that's where my Mad Sam got whacked by his own men. Yeah, he had a torture chamber in his basement. He did all kind of things. It was almost like a Joseph Goebbels experimentation on people, and I know that that's not a good thing because that guy was certainly a lot more evil than this lunatic here because he had something to do with the death of millions of human beings. But it was just like that similar mind, that trait where if he had the opportunity to kill or murder more, I'm sure Mad Sam would have done it. But he was something else. He was kind of laughed at by people, but people were also very much afraid of him too. But again, he was essaying girls, riding around. So this is a sexual sadistic killer. So this is the guy that's going to get off on this later on. Or I don't know if they ever found anything on him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he kept souvenirs or trinkets of people, you know what I mean, of women and men. And yeah, if you're going to do a favor for someone, you're going to get something in return, or if you're going to just give you a check, not give you a check, but give you a handful of cash, sure, I'll do it. But these guys here that I talked about tonight, they went above and beyond. They killed people who the mob wouldn't think needed killing, that they didn't even tell the mob about. Citizens, taxpayers, people that they felt ran afoul of them, people that had something that they wanted. It wasn't always business with these guys. And like all the mobsters that'll tell you, the old ones and the new ones, you watch interviews or anything like that, the wild people, the people that are, can't be controlled, everyone's afraid of, those people never last long. And they never go to jail. They always get killed. Tommy Karate made it to jail. I don't think, I don't even know if I think he's still alive. Someone could correct me if they can. Hey, Charlotte, how are you? But I just thought it would be interesting in the parallels of all the other cases that we talk about, old, new, stuff that hasn't come up yet. Whenever it's a possibility for a contract thing, the shooting of the CEO, and people are like, is this a contract thing? And everything that I know and I've studied about it, a contract thing, the guys that are good, girls that are good, they're up there quick. They're in and out. They do their scouting. They're not on camera. And if they are, it's not going to be anything that's going to be able to be used. They're not going to have the gun on them a few days later and then El Tuna McDonald's. And how you feel about the guy that was killed and the killer is irrelevant, just looking at it from the true crime perspective. So one other little tidbit from The Sopranos. If you remember Richie Aprile, he's one of my favorite characters because he was nuts. I also liked Joe Pantoliano's character. Richie was great. Richie Aprile was great, though. Anyway, so he's giving Tony Soprano, Ralphie was Joe's character. He's giving Tony Soprano the jacket, and he said he took it off of Rocco DeMeo. He was the toughest guy in Essex County, but they're talking about Roy DeMeo, different name, but they're talking about that. So it's a pretty cool thing. But he was known as a bad dude. Another guy whose kid didn't know. His kid actually said, I believe his kid. So we talk about people's families not knowing what they did. And this isn't one murder. This was, up to 200. I don't think it was 200. Yes, that is Frank Sinatra, and that's Sam Stefano. But if you where were we on that there? I lost my place, my train of thought there. But anyways, yeah. Oh, his son didn't know a lot till the book came out, and he's like, I didn't realize a lot of this. I knew my dad was into kind of in the mob, and I knew this, but I didn't know he was this, this kind of madman killer. And that was Roy DeMeo's son. So he was kind of insulated. But again, DeMeo compartmentalizes this Kuklinski, the Iceman did. And they go home and they have dinner. They go to the kid's birthday party, and a normal human being will not be able to do that. So their pathology, if you will, in their minds is just something's wired wrong. Something's wrong there. But it is what it is, and I find it very interesting. And I don't think I'm going to do too many mafia shows, I guess, but I thought it was interesting. Like I said, with the CEO shooter, the mob stories are always cool. They're always interesting. They're always human stories, and you're not getting what you used to get with the mob. It's not as prevalent as it used to be. That we know of, or if they are, they're doing a good job and they've gone underground and they're doing different things now. They're not shaking people down for money or strong arming people or whatever the case may be. They're doing different things that are doing it better. But that pretty much wraps up everything that I had that I wanted to show you. And I'm sure that there's other people within the mafia that probably could be considered serial killers. These are the ones that kind of jumped out to me, the ones that I knew about before. I wouldn't put Gravano on that list. He only put hands on one, and we're not looking at people that plan these things. That's kind of what he did. As far as we know, he put hands on one. But I don't know. I thought it was interesting, and we'll look to do something else next time. Delphi sentencing is December 20th. That's next Friday. I know Frank Meister will be there. I don't know if I'll do a show about that or not. Probably. That'll put a bonnet on that. Anything legal action aside after that. And then we'll get back with Atlanta a little bit more and dig deeper into there. And as always, Flora. Nothing new on that front in the last couple of weeks with me. I've sent stuff to a couple of different people, and hopefully their eyes are on it, and maybe they'll come up with something that we've all missed, and that'd be great. I don't care. You say, Coach Kev, you missed this. Good, you found it. I'm glad. So hopefully that's going on, and we'll go from there. But I will see you here in the next couple of days. There's an outside chance I might do something on Atlanta tomorrow night. I don't know that for sure. I can't guarantee that. So I'll put up a thumbnail if I can. But more than likely, will probably be Tuesday of next week again. I'll be looking to do something. I do want to have a Christmas episode. I want to do that. And maybe even like in the morning, Christmas Eve, like at noon or something. Would you guys want to do anything? I know people are busy, but just like come in and, I don't know, tell Christmas stories or whatever, or maybe even early Christmas Eve morning or something like that, just to see everyone hang out. I won't be doing anything Christmas Day, and I work the day after Christmas. So be good to check everyone out and just see how everyone's doing. And, but people I know around the world at different times, might be 9 o'clock here, but it might be 2 o'clock somewhere else, and they're already eating their dinner or whatever. But I hope you learned a little bit tonight about mafia killers and organized crime. And yeah, I think that some of these guys did go that route, and I would call them serial killers, absolutely, for sure. It wasn't just about the money for them. It wasn't about the prestige or the place in their criminal organization. So I hope everyone has a good Thursday night. Pretty decent football game on tonight. San Francisco and the Rams. My Steelers play the Philly Eagles Sunday, so you know what I'll be watching Sunday. And I hope everyone has a good weekend, and stay warm if you're around anywhere near where I am. It's getting cold and some snow coming in. And have a great weekend, and get ready for Christmas, right? Make sure your lights are up, get that shopping done, and everything else you got to do. A lot of good sales in the grocery stores these last couple of weeks. I don't know where you live, but here in Pittsburgh, there's been some really good sales. So if you have the opportunity, check out the sales. We'll leave it at that. We're going to get out of here. I'm going to have my sip of water. Thank you all so much for joining. Oh, CJK, that sucks. I worked last year Christmas Eve. Yeah. Well, hopefully you don't have to work too late. I had to work 24 straight hours, so I didn't get off till Christmas morning. But my kids are grown up now, so it sucks, but this year I'm good, baby. Ready to hang out and eat a bunch of gluten-free food and drink my Red Bridges. Family bacon on Saturday. Well, that's cool. Make sure you got the Christmas music cranking. That's the only rule for family bacon. Slowly coming along, it is. Yeah, I have a couple of things. I'm going to start hanging things up next. I have all my stuff up here. And I just have to hang a couple of things up. You can't see, but I have my Abby and Libby Park, my Monon High sign. So you'll see my Michigan Stadium thing. I just got Kobe up back here now and my Rockwood. So I'm just figuring things out. All my cool jerseys are hanging up. I'd like to get them hanging up again, maybe around the top of the room. So, all right, everybody, have a great night. Have a great couple of days. And I hope tomorrow's up in the air. There's a possibility I might come back doing some Atlanta stuff, but I think Tuesday for sure. And I'd love to do something with Charles, man. We could talk some Florida stuff. So, as always. All right, everybody. Love you. Take care. Oops, I almost hit the wrong button there. Sorry. I love you all. Take care. And Coach Kev